Awesome.
Do it.
I will email him.
Sounds good. All right, we're live.
I am recording.
I'm recording too.
Yep.
All right, let's do a clap.
Doop doop doop.
3, 2, 1. Beautiful clap. Absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Alrighty. Should I tweet the link out again?
Yes. It's been like 3 hours since the last one.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I'll do that then. Have you noticed I've started doing custom thumbnails for the YouTube thumbnail thing?
Yeah, I saw that. Cool.
It's because I was bored.
Looks fancy.
But
Bored
see, now
while
you've done
editing.
it. Now you've done it, and now you have to keep doing it.
You're right.
It's a slippery slope, my friend.
I know. Yeah, I was tired of them. I was tired of all 3 preview images being my face.
Yes.
So,
I know the feeling.
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do, CJ. I get you.
You get me.
Yep.
Yeah, and you featured Phil's face last time, which, let's be
Well-
honest, he's the Brad Pitt of the Player One podcast.
Well, I mean, he's like the rare Pokemon. That's like putting Meowth on the.
Yeah,
'cause, I mean, he's rarely here. So
yeah,
you want to
gotta
let
put, you
people
gotta
know
put
that
him
he's
up
here.
there when he shows up. You gotta
Yeah.
put him front and center. Yeah, it's true. I'm getting a little. I'm hearing some headphone audio. I think from Ethan. So if you can turn your headphones down a little bit,
Oh,
your
okay.
headphone volume.
Sure.
Not sure if you're able to do that.
All right, is that better?
Yes. It sounds better. Yes.
Great.
As long as you can still hear us, we're good.
Yep.
We're good. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 511 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2016. I'm your host, Chris Johnston. With me, as always, from Canada, Mr. Greg Seward.
Fresh off the Tragically Hip concert.
Yeah, how
It's
about
like
that?
a national event up here. I don't know. I don't think I know anyone who didn't watch it in some form or another.
Was it broadcast on national television?
Yes, it was, and there were a ton of viewing parties all over the place. A lot of outdoor viewing parties in every city across Canada. It's very cool.
Excellent.
Awesome set. Gord Down
They
is
did
amazing.
like 3 hours, didn't they? They went a
Yeah.
lot. Crazy.
Yeah, they did. I mean, well, they're like a Canadian institute, so
Sure.
yeah, very cool.
Very, very cool. And with us this week from the West Coast, Mr. Ethan Einhorn.
Hey guys, great to be back. This weekend is back to school weekend, so we've been getting the kids all ready for that. And Winnie has been increasingly the leader of the kind of neighborhood group of kids, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that she's the only one with a 3DS. So when we send the kids out to have some nice outdoor time, she grabs her 3DS and my 3DS and plays Mario Kart with kids instead. So they're outside.
So I'm sure that
But-
other parents love
yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yes.
But
There is
yeah,
a-
it's a good time of year. Go ahead.
I mean, the
you guys
3DS is supposed to be a portable system, right? You're supposed to be able to take it outside and play.
Yeah, but
That's
that's not why the other parents are sending their kids out to play. Come on.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Did you you guys you guys back to school early?
Well, next week. I think that's the same for a lot of kids, at least out here
It's
in
not
California.
till September 8th here.
It was last week here.
Yeah, I saw that from a few different places. Like we've never gone back to school before September.
That's crazy.
It's just like July and August that is your summer vacation. Period.
That used to be the way that it was back when I was in school, right? It
Yeah.
used to be like late August or like right around Labor Day. We'd go back to school, and now it's just earlier and earlier and earlier down here.
Well, my wife, who teaches at the school that my kids go to, she actually started this week going back because there's a week of prep time for the teachers and meetings and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And that meant that Daddy was stay at home for a week, taking care of the kids exclusively. And while that was a lot of fun, I'm also super excited about school starting. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that.
Surely. All right, should we talk about delays? Everyone's
Sure.
Why? What's
favorite
getting delayed?
topic. Well, Final Fantasy 15. I don't know if you saw this last week.
I did.
Got delayed from its, I think it was a September date initially, and now it's November 29th, something like
To
that.
be fair, that game's been in development for about 20 years.
True.
Didn't they finally say that was the... Remember that they announced that Final Fantasy, I forget the name of it, that Final Fantasy game years and years and years ago, that kind of kept disappearing and reappearing, and then they finally said that 15 is actually that game. But it was way back,
Really?
like I think the launch of the PS2 or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, yep, that's true.
Final Fantasy versus 13.
That's right.
Really? That's this game?
That's this
Yep.
game. Yeah, they announced that was this game. I think earlier this year, late last year. I think it was Nomura that came out and said that this is Final Fantasy versus 13.
Okay.
What's fascinating to me about that, though, is that Square has this incredible tenacity. So if they fail, they don't kill the project or move on. They just keep working on it until it comes out. Remember what happened also with Final Fantasy XIV, where that came out and got absolutely miserable scores and
Slaughtered.
was considered a terrible online multiplayer game. And then they just basically completely reworked, and re-released it. And what company does that? What other company would bother?
I don't know. That's a massively multiplayer game. It's a little bit more, that makes a little bit more sense than doing that for, say, an offline single-player game.
Yeah, that's true.
It's kind of two different things there. Because I'm not totally versed in how massive multiplayer game works, but I know that a lot of them that were successful evolved so much over time that if you played the original, it would feel like a different game.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
you're
true,
right.
too.
I mean, their turnaround for 11 was extremely fast, relatively speaking, because it came out and it was a disaster.
Yep.
So this one got delayed in part, it seems, at least in the explanation, that they realized that the day one patch was going to be
Bigger than the game.
bigger than they thought. So they want to have that time to add additional polish and make the version that's on the disc as final as it can be. Of course, I'm sure it will still have a day one patch because you're not done patching at the day one patch. That's only the first
Always be patching.
first update. Exactly. So there you go. We have a 2-month delay for Final Fantasy 15, and I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, so honestly, it doesn't affect me. But
I can't bring myself to care, but I'm sure there are a fair amount of people who are very excited about that game.
yeah, well,
So,
it didn't have
that kind
that
of
great a showing at E3, right?
It did not.
When the live gameplay that they were doing at one of the press conferences, I remember it was just the most boring thing to watch.
See, but
Didn't he keep dying or something? It was very sad.
to be fair, though, I mean, we're speaking as sort of old school Final Fantasy fans.
That's
I
true.
mean, there's a whole new generation of people who like the series in its current form.
True.
So I don't know how they reacted to that. I know for me personally, if they showed anything that didn't remind me of something from Final Fantasy IX back, I wasn't going to be that excited.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
I would imagine, though, especially when you're talking to older RPG fans, that the excitement over Persona 5 is probably higher than the excitement for the new Final Fantasy.
Could be.
Maybe.
Doesn't this then push Final Fantasy out later than the Japanese release of Persona? I think it does.
Speaking as an old school RPG fan, I have no idea.
Yeah.
The only thing I know about Persona 5 is what I hear from Ethan and Kevin Larrabee.
There you go. Well, in other delay news, Capy has announced that their game Below is being delayed indefinitely. It was originally a summer 2016 release, and it sounds from the explanation on their website that they don't think that it's finished, and instead of giving a new loose release date, they decided to just go dark instead and not say a particular release date. And the next time, apparently, that we hear from them on the game, they will know the date. So
that makes sense for a company like that. I mean,
Sure.
they're a company that if they release something and it's poorly received, it could knock them right out.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You want to make
That
sure you
makes
get it
sense.
right.
Makes total sense.
I had forgotten all about that game, except for the fact that I pre-ordered it a couple years ago. So I keep getting updates from Best Buy that it doesn't have a release date yet.
Oh, is it actually going to be a physical product?
I don't know, because a lot of those ones in the old Best Buy and Future
They
Shop,
just put it on there.
they just put it on there, whether it was going to be digital or physical, like just in case there was a physical version. So a few times I've had it happen where it's like, you know what, this actually isn't available in a physical form, so we're canceling your pre-order.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. In happier news, question mark? Konami released a trailer for a new Metal Gear game last week called Metal Gear Survive.
Which the franchise will not without Hideo Kojima.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ouch. So its timeline, it takes place right after the end of Ground Zeroes, with members of the destroyed Mother Base being ripped out of our reality and dropped into another one.
I hated that they said that because they just spoiled the end of Metal Gear 5.
But it's the end of Ground Zeroes. Isn't
That's-
Ground
sorry,
Zeroes
Ground
like
Zeroes. No.
that's the short little...
Oh, yeah, you're right. Never mind. Forget what I said.
Gear 5.
I'm lost.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I've never played the end of Metal Gear 5, so but yes, okay, that makes sense now. But
it's just
funny,
Ground Zeroes, yeah.
It's funny that they're saying it's kind of like a direct sequel to Ground Zeroes, but it's not, because they're just throwing
No.
everybody into an alternate dimension.
It's an offshoot, right.
They could say it's a direct sequel to anything.
Yeah.
And given that Kojima is one of those rare Japanese developers that likes tweeting a lot, I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it, because he's going to play it, and he's going to say something.
What if he comes out and
Probably.
says it's the best Metal Gear ever?
You know, I obviously that's never going to happen, but he might come out and say that it's a good game. That's part of the fun of trying to guess what he'd have to say. But frankly,
I'm
maybe
sure
unfairly,
people he used to work with are still working on this, right?
right?
Still,
Yeah.
that team. Yeah.
Well, and again, perhaps unfairly, I'm pretty uninterested in any Metal Gear game that he's not involved in, just because I think that he's so much the author of that brand. I know that I've
it's his
played
vision.
plenty of. Yeah, I mean, we played plenty of games that were sequels to games that were done by a different creative team without issue, but this one I think is really quite different.
Well, here's a
And,
question about that. So, I mean, we're talking about this being a new Metal Gear game where Kojima's not involved because, Konami let him go or whatever. But he's not going to be involved, but he's still around. What about another team like picking up from creators that aren't as prolific as Kojima? BioShock was BioShock 2. It wasn't exactly the same team that did the original, and that turned out okay.
Turned out great.
Resident Evil, I think, also isn't the same.
Shinji
Uh,
Mikami was what made 4 so good, and he left Capcom after that. So we got 5 and 6, and those were not so awesome. But
I mean, you look at Castlevania. I would argue that I would argue that the first one done by what the hell was the name of that group?
Team Iga.
No, Lords of Shadow. I would argue that Lords of
yeah.
Shadow was fantastic.
Yeah,
Lords of Shadow
Mercury
2 was a
Steam or something
disaster.
like
Mercury
Right.
Steam, that was the name of the group.
Yeah.
Lords of Shadow was great. Lords of Shadow 2 is a disaster, but the first one was really good.
Well, I think also some brands simply have more flexibility than others in that regard. So for me, the idea of a Metal Gear game without Kojima is literally the same as somebody deciding to make Pulp Fiction 2 without Quentin Tarantino. It's just like you could bring a lot of the original people back, but if it wasn't Tarantino, it would be very strange to make a sequel to that particular film.
Sure, yeah, I think I get what you're saying. So basically, Kojima is such an original, and his games are
His games are his.
Not only the plot, but the sense of style and the tangents that he takes are uniquely Kojima.
Yeah.
That anybody trying to do it is just it's not going to feel correct. It's not going to feel right. No matter if it's a good game or not, really.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
and even the big kind of wow moments or moments of surprise, like having to use a DualShock controller in port 2 instead of port 1. If anyone who's not Kojima tries to do that, I think it's going to come off as contrived.
I'm gonna get you there though, and Sega did something like that first. The end of it X-Men or X-Men 2 where you had to
X-Men,
reset the console?
Yep.
Come on. Kojima totally cribbed that idea.
Well, we all know Eternal Darkness did it first. I mean, come on.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
When?
I think Metal Gear Solid was before Eternal Darkness.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Of course, they started working on Eternal Darkness earlier than that, but
that is true.
Speaking of games that took a long time to come out.
Oh my God, I played that at E3
as an N64 game
when it was on the N64, and it had terrible slowdown. It was like
it was an N64 game.
It was literally unplayable. Literally unplayable.
But no load times, I bet.
No load times. But all I can remember from the demo is like walking a character forward to like this tablet, and it was moving at like 10 frames a second. It was awful. I like immediately put it down and went to something else. But speaking of Nintendo,
when do we ever do that on this podcast?
Never. We never do this. According to the NPD, the #1 best-selling video game hardware platform of July was the Nintendo 3DS, which beat the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And
Which makes
exceeded last July's performance by 80%.
That's pretty incredible, especially when you think about the fact that right now it's understood that the NX is coming out in March. Now, they may push that back. In fact, I think, CJ, you've said that you think it's likely they'll push it back. But as far as we know right now, it's only a handful of months away. And I guess that means that until it becomes like a public announcement with fanfare and it's an official thing, people just don't pay attention to that at all.
Well, and I think also, and I think Nintendo may even have said this, that Pokemon Go, interest in Pokemon Go helped to fuel those sales.
Oh, that's great too.
Yeah. But I mean, I think Nintendo, even in their financial results, have said that they believe the 3DS is a platform on the decline. So I think this is an anomaly. Like this really.
Well, I mean,
they're not going to be able to sustain any sort of lift off of Pokemon Go.
Right.
Highest selling platform. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Never mind.
But
still, I think what's going to be really interesting with this is now you've had a generation younger than us, in many cases significantly younger than us, that have started playing just on, again, the tablets and the phones. And those people, if they are shifting over to 3DS as a result of enjoying Pokemon Go, I think they're really going to be delighted with what they get. It's just such a different feel and ecosystem. The games feel so much purer that I think that could be a really good thing for interest in NX and just in premium games in general, because that's something that so many kids just have not been exposed to.
Yeah, I agree. Xbox One, of course, the top-selling console of July, and I gotta believe that was largely fueled by the fire sale-esque prices of the Xbox One all through July to sort of setting up the Xbox One S launch in early August. So, yes, indeed. All right. Speaking of revised hardware. You guys see this NeoGAF thread of the new
PS4 Slim
model PS4? Yeah. So
they should really call it the PS4 Short, because it looks like it's almost the same dimensions, except it's not quite as tall.
Is this the same
dimensions? Is
this the same thing that people? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, CJ.
It's a little bit thinner. It's and these photos started. getting posted on the internet apparently from some British auction site.
Well, it would make sense because there was a chipset that was being dubbed by fans the Trinity, because people are just trying to apply Matrix names to everything. That some were hoping was a new Vita, which I think it will not be, and maybe that it was the PS4 Slim that they were looking at instead. So I think it's quite possible that that's announced the same time as the Neo.
Very likely. I wonder if this leak will force their hand into announcing it early. Although, I don't know if you guys remember when there was a Slim PS3 announced, where the box, like the mock-ups for the box, came out like before E3, and they did not announce it at E3. Instead, it was like an August announcement, and the box images were proven as correct, but for a short time, people thought they were fake. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Slim PS4. All right. I think that's it for the news.
Did you just call out? I don't know how long it's going, but there's a PlayStation Flash sale on right now.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Some nice stuff on there. Real cheap. I love that Sony's doing this. I'm so glad because they seem to do it with major frequency now. And the one that's really standing out to me on the list is if you're a gold member, is The Witcher 3 for $25. PS Plus, sorry. Witcher 3 for $25.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really
that's
good
a great
deals on
deal.
Yeah.
I picked up 2 games on that. I got Saturday Morning RPG and Solnar X2.
Nice.
Some really good prices on there if you're a PS Plus member. And even if you're not, there's some good prices, but the PS Plus prices are like a good 50% off.
Yeah, I think in general we see, so when a title gets released initially, people are like, oh, on digital it's so expensive. But as time goes on, I've found that with these flash sales and with these holiday sales that Sony and even Microsoft have, digital games get pretty cheap.
Well, that's
pretty quick.
That's following conversations that we had way back.
Sure.
As the digital stores were taking off on the PS3 and the 360, I think we all said at one point or another, it's like this will work if they follow in Steam's footsteps and have some massive sales every now and then. Doesn't have to be every day, but
which they did, yeah.
Yeah, which like I said, I find that Sony is doing with regularity at this point. So love it.
There is one concern about it, though. I think it's great from our perspective. On a consumer level, it's wonderful. But you also look at then how it will change fundamentally the spending behavior of consumers, where people will start to say, well, I'll just wait for the flash sale, just like they do for Steam.
But it's been like that for a long time.
Well, and just like they do for the physical goods, too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The advent of used games was sort of the start of that, and then way before this started happening, we would constantly talk about, a game comes out, and then 2 months later, it's like 50% off at EB.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting that Nintendo has somehow managed to avoid that entirely, where if you want to go get Mario Kart 8 or Super Smash Brothers today at a store, it's $60.
Sure. Well, they do that for their top-tier games, of course, but if you want to find a copy of Codename Steam, you can get that for like $5. $10.
Yes.
Like the ones that did not meet sales expectations are discounted fairly quickly.
And I mean the other thing too is that when you look at the sort of the frequency of Nintendo releases. If I was running Nintendo, I wouldn't want my flagship games going on sale really quickly either.
Right.
But it kind of goes back to that whole thing where you have more major AAA third-party games coming out on the other two consoles, so it's not as big a deal.
Right.
Right. Oh, is it Lego City Undercover that was out for the Wii U? And a physical copy of that was rare at one point. That's getting re-released as part of the Nintendo Selects program later this month. So it used to be that if you wanted that, like within the last 2 years, you had to pay a pretty penny for it. But,
and I don't think there was a digital release, was there, of that one?
Yes, there was a digital release of Lego City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Nintendo Land is the one that still does not have a digital release, inexplicably.
That's terrible.
No, it's awesome. I was playing it today with my daughter, in fact.
Wait, I don't think that can be true because we don't have a Nintendo Land disc. So, and
you may have gotten a code. Did you get your Wii U?
I got it day one.
Day one? Then how come you...
That's weird, because it came with it.
Yeah, it came with
I
the
had
disc.
a disc.
I had a disc, too.
Oh, no, but you guys got the deluxe systems. They were sold out of those by the time I got there, and so the version of the Wii U that I bought had no game. Yeah,
okay.
so I bought...
Then how do you have Nintendo Land?
I bought a physical copy of the Super Mario Brothers Wii U, and then ended up when we got home, we actually did want Nintendo Land. So if I remember correctly, we just bought a digital version, but I do not think that we have a disc for that.
Weird. Well, as far as I know, it's not been on download for quite some time. If it was at launch.
Also available bundled with the Luigi Wii Remote Plus controller. Yeah, I don't see it. It's for sale digitally at all.
Yeah.
You know, my 30 seconds of research show that it's not available digitally.
That's right. That's right. Nintendo Land is great, though.
Yeah, it is. We
really
actually do play it quite a bit still.
It's terrible.
Sure it is. All right. Should we get on to what we've been playing?
Sure.
All right. I'll start off. I've been playing No Man's Sky again, and it's like sit in front of the PS4 and I'm like, oh, what should I play? I'll load up No Man's Sky for a second.
There's nothing to play. No Man's Sky.
Like 4 hours later, it's like, oh my god.
That should be another one of those classic Player One podcast back of the box quotes. Sit in front of my PS4. What should I play? Yeah, No Man's Sky.
System. Yeah. So I loaded it up and played a bunch more. Got back on the Atlas path. I was able to do that, and I bought my first new ship today.
Damn.
So I have the pre-order ship, which has 16 slots, and I could not, for the life of me, get enough money to buy a ship with more slots, because it's fairly expensive. It's 1.5, 1.8 million usually to get like a 25 slot ship. So I have a 25 slot ship now. But so I found a planet. It was a moon where they had these flowers. You could open them up and it would reveal this pearl, this like sphere or whatever. And those were really they got a lot of units on the trading system. So I would basically just fly around farming those, and since it's a high value item, the Sentinels come after you right away. Like right as soon as you pluck one of them, you have 3 Sentinels on you, including the little robot cat thing that hunts you. If you've seen that yet?
I have not seen that yet.
I have not either.
Well, I would basically like set up 4 or 5 flowers with their pearls like open, and basically run from one to the other, pick up all 5, and then take care of the Sentinels. It was great, and I got a 25 slot ship that way.
That's
nice.
Cool. That must help a lot.
It does. It does. Although now I think my exosuit, I've got like 30 plus slots on that.
Okay.
So ready.
So you're saying when they introduce PvP, you're the guy to kill?
Yes, that's right. Are they gonna do PvP?
I have no idea. I doubt it.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure. You saw that internet video that was up on Twitter and YouTube of the Jurassic Park
hilarious
music.
You should link to that in the show notes.
I will link to it. Yes.
I mean, it's very mean, but it's still pretty funny.
It's mean, yeah. And I mean, there are times playing No Man's Sky where I'm like, wow, this is beautiful, or this is a beautiful planet, and there's a lot of cool animals here, but nothing that looks like the E3 2014 footage for sure. And I don't know that anything as bad as the footage in that the Twitter or YouTube clip. That's just bad.
Well, I mean, that's what it shows in that clip is the danger of having procedurally generated anything, right?
Well, sure.
I mean, the animal just looks ridiculous.
It does. I don't know. I don't. It may just be like a psychological thing, but after the new patch today, the 1.05 patch, the planets seem to look a lot better.
They
May just be.
they tweeted something out a couple weeks ago about a patch they were working on that was going to make everybody really happy, but I don't know that they've ever followed up on that.
Yeah. Or what that
Interesting
would
what that's
include.
about. Yeah.
Well, I think just the structure and nature of that game is one of those things where it's not mass market, and so by and large, people are not going to love the game, but it's going to fill the need of a very specific audience so well that there's going to be a handful of people that just really think it's the greatest thing ever made.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There've been some good chats about No Man's Sky on other podcasts. We'll link to 8-4-Play. Had a
Okay,
good.
Oh,
what was their
I don't know
overall
about that guy.
impression?
They liked it. I think everybody there liked it, including Mark. So,
Okay.
So that was good. And DLC with Jeff Kanata and Christian Spicer, they talked about it too. Really good talk on there as well.
Oh, I'll have to listen to that.
Some differing opinions there. So I'll link to those in the show notes, but definitely check those out. Speaking of controversial opinions, controversial releases, Metroid Prime Federation Force came out on Friday.
Did
I
you
had
buy it?
forgotten.
I picked it up, yes.
And?
Best Metroid game ever.
Of course. No, I mean it depends what you're looking for, right? And it depends what you're okay with. I think last E3 when this thing got announced, people were really hungry for a new Metroid Prime game, a new Metroid game, and they didn't get it. Instead, they got this, which is a multiplayer 3DS shooter that's kind of similar to Triforce Heroes for Zelda for Metroid. So I can understand why people were disappointed with that. But to me, this is not a bad game. Like this is still a really fun experience in the Metroid world, and I don't think it's bad that this exists at all. Like what?
I feel like what's the name of the developer for this?
Next Level.
Next Level, which are the same people that did Luigi's Mansion 2, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for them in the same way that I feel bad for Hello Games, where it probably is a good game. I kind of assumed it would be a good game because it's Next Level, and
Right.
they make good stuff.
Absolutely.
But the way that Sony saddled Hello Games and saddled them with these ridiculous expectations, I feel like Nintendo saddling this game with the Metroid license.
Yeah.
Well, we've already seen it, and I don't think it's ever going to get fixed. Almost no one will get past that. Right?
I agree.
Because it sets a level of expectation, and not necessarily just for quality, but for a type of game that's not there. And it's like with Metroid Prime, there was a little bit of that as well, but Metroid Prime still felt like a Metroid game. It took you a while to figure that out because everyone saw it's like, oh, first-person shooter, it's not a Metroid game. But then you really played it, you realize, yeah, it's very much in the mold of Metroid, just
Sure.
a different camera angle.
Right.
But
Right.
this is so far removed from what you would expect a Metroid game to be.
I don't know that I would. I mean, I still think there are parts of it that feel like a Metroid game. I mean,
But
you know what it
overall,
really
overall
is?
feeling.
It's
This
really
is-
a co-op shooter, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so think about Metroid as being a four-person cooperative shooter. And that's
This
what this is.
This is Friday the 13th, the TV series. You know, the one that didn't have Jason in it ever.
That is obscure as
Don't
hell.
call it Friday
That is
the
really
13th.
obscure.
How old is that?
Old enough.
Well, it
yeah.
it reminds me of what happened with Fuse. You remember Fuse with Insomniac?
Yeah, but see,
It
the
was
difference
just-
was that wasn't saddled with a beloved license.
That's true, but it
That's-
was a beloved developer and a
Sure.
game that nobody wanted out of that developer. Yeah, I mean, I agree that Nintendo did not do this game any favors. and part of it, like if it was, all right, we got a mainline Metroid game, and then this was a follow-up like side game, then I think
Right.
people would have been more open to it. But
Yeah.
because this is all we have for the time being, people are upset about it. And to me, it is a fun game, and I played a little bit online and a little bit single player as well, and I'm having a good time with it. The missions are like between 10 and 15 minutes long usually.
That's a pretty good length.
And they've been fun. I've hopped online and partied up with some people, and it's been good. But yeah, I don't think there's no coming around from what the terrible feedback was from last E3.
Well, and you would think that if maybe they released, instead of this, Metroid Fusion 2 or something like that, something that was a more mainline game experience, that I would have bought on cart day one. That would be very exciting to me. And if they had a handful of modes that would be similar to what you see in Federation Force to increase the lifespan of it, give it some multiplayer, that's fine. That would also, actually, if they didn't do any multiplayer, I would imagine from a development standpoint be arguably cheaper just to do a Fusion 2. So I'm really confused by this, because they could have done something at the end of the life cycle that really made people happy by making a very retro style Metroid game, and instead there's this. I just really wonder what the thought process was there.
I don't even feel like they need. I mean, I'm not sure what you're saying when you say retro style. Like, are you saying?
I'm saying a 2D Metroid mainline game.
Yeah. See, I don't even think you need to go that far. Like I said, with Prime, it just needs to feel more like a Metroid game in general.
Right.
I don't. This
think
game feels like a shooter or almost like a sports game that's been slapped with a Metroid license. It's a big difference.
Blast Ball has been, I think, saddled with it's it's the shooter, and it's also a sports game.
That's how they've marketed it.
I mean, that is how they've marketed it. I don't see that at all. I see Blast Ball as like it's a cool mode, but I wouldn't want to play that for more than 10 minutes. And I played that in the demo, and I got my fill, and that's all I want of that. But I'm really enjoying the full, it's got like 27 missions or something in this game, and so far they're a mix of action and puzzle solving. It's paced very well, and of course, it's a Metroid game, so some of these you'll defeat a boss and then have to escape in time, of course. And
I guess what I'm saying is I'll wait for a flash sale.
You'll wait for a flash sale. Okay. And it surprises me that the Miiverse community is not as robust on this one as I thought it would be.
Good Lord.
That's right. It's slow is what I'm saying. Like, I posted something last night, and then in the morning when I checked it again, I was scrolling through some posts, and my post came up. Generally speaking, like with the weekend of release, you aren't able to like post one night and then see your post like the next day. So
yeah,
I don't know that it's gonna end up doing too well, but I feel bad for Next Level because they are great developers. Luigi's Mansion 2 is one of my favorite games ever.
Mm-hmm. That was a fantastic game.
In fact, like you want to, they never should have made a sequel to Luigi's Mansion with how the first one was received, and I'm so happy that they did. And I am happy.
Well, their Punch-Out game also.
They did a Punch-Out game, yeah. I'm happy that Nintendo sometimes makes these like weird sequels that quote unquote nobody wants, just because I find that interesting. But yeah, this game has been unfairly singled out. I think if people would get past not wanting, or if they could get past their hate on, I think they'd find an enjoyable little shooter.
Yeah, that's the thing. I just feel like people won't in general.
They won't. No.
I mean, like Ethan said, like I did not go out and buy this, and I don't really have any plans on buying it. And normally, a Metroid game, I'm there day one.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Alrighty. Ethan,
Yes. So
what do you got?
what I have is, I've been calculating this, and now for the past month, as I've really upped my collecting on the Vita, I have just within that 30-day window spent about $600 on Vita stuff, and that's been heavily subsidized by about $500 in trade-ins. So I have liquidated a lot of the games I've had in my backlog that I'll never ever get to, in order to get more of these Vita games. And
There's something you're doing that I wish I could I should just do. And I've sort of, every now and then I look at my ridiculous collection, especially with the 360 and the PS3, because I was still getting free games at that point.
Yep.
And it's just like, why in the world am I keeping like 80% of these?
Right, and you'll just never get to it. And for me, again, the reason
because
I've chosen...
it's more work to get... Sorry, I keep cutting you off, but for me, it's more work to get rid of them, because I'd have to go... All the cases are in storage, and I'd have to go through, and I just look at it and go, eh...
Thing is, though, is when you're, because a lot of what I was getting rid of was like 360 and PS3 stuff, and you get a couple bucks sometimes, even $5-6 for these games, but that adds up, especially in some of the trade-in deals that you get. So that can actually really help if you want to kind of shift your collecting inventory to something else. For me, the reason Vita works so well as a collecting space is, again, the library is pretty small, so it's reasonable to try to collect them all. But also, and for me critically, it's just that kind of experience that you can take anywhere. So I'm playing a game called Trails of Cold Steel, which is an RPG. It's kind of Suikoden meets Persona, and it's really fun. It has a lot of personality, and it's a game I would never have played, never touched, if it weren't for the fact that I'm collecting these games and looking at the Metacritic list and seeing what games are recommended as the best. Trails of Cold Steel was a game that made Kotaku's 12 best Vita games, and that's what really triggered the purchase for me, and I'm so happy that I have that. In like form, there's another rhythm dance game, and again, not something I usually pay attention to as a genre, called Sonic with an X, Xonic, and Destructoid gave it a 9.5 and said this is one of the best rhythm games ever made. And so I was able to find a used copy of that, tried it out, and it is just impossible to put down with this crazy set of music tracks that I've never heard before, but are really catchy and fun.
So
and
what is
the
game?
It is it's a kind of like a Tap Revolution type of thing. It's tapping on the screen, right?
Okay.
But the way it does it, it doesn't do what Hatsune Miku does, which is clutter the screen and make it really hard to follow. They keep it really kind of basic, and so it looks like something that would have come from the Rez team, but just really slick, really fun, great music, and again, both of those games are things I simply would not have played if I weren't looking specifically at one silo of gaming, in this case Vita.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's really cool. The other one that I did want to touch on really quickly is that I went back and I played Sly Cooper 1, which it blows me away that game is 14 years old, because it just looks so new. When you play like Ratchet and Clank 1 or Jak 1, and the ports are not very good to Vita, and they look very old. But what Sanzaru was able to do with Sly is absolutely incredible, and those games are just amazing. And it's cool to see that some games...
One of my favorite series. Really, one of my favorite series.
Totally, and you get all four of them on the Vita, which is a lot of fun. But again, it's really suited to gameplay experiences like that. That you can play a quick mission and be done with it. So yeah, I mean, again, most of my time has been spent on Vita, but I did break away for an iOS game that just came out, which is Deus Ex Go, which I really am happy with. It's a premium game. It's $4.99. It's the follow-up to Lara Croft Go and Hitman Go, and it's just as good as those games. Same development team.
Is it a similar mechanic to those?
Yes, it's a stealth variant on that. Okay. So the whole thing is you're trying to move your character as enemies move at the same time, so that you can line up to get behind them to take them out instead of attack up front, which always kills you. So the puzzles get increasingly complex, but it's just a really beautiful, satisfying game that I'm sure will help push sales of the new Deus Ex game, but wouldn't surprise me if just on a pure gameplay design level, Deus Ex Go may well be as good as the full-fledged game. Just it's really artfully crafted.
I've been meaning to. I've been meaning to pick that up. There was a great article that one of the developers on my team at work actually pointed out. I'm just going to share the link with you guys in the chat here. We can put that in the show notes. But really great article on The Verge about Square Enix Montreal and how when they stopped doing AAA console games and they shaved the company down to about 40 people, and they're treated very much. They treat themselves very much like an indie studio. It's just kind of interesting to read because they talk about how in the sort of the creation of this Go series, it was all based on people stepping out of their specific work silos. Because I mean, you have something like the studio was originally meant to be over 100 people, and you look at something like say. Even the latest Tomb Raider, when you finish those games, the credits roll for a half an hour, right? There's just hundreds of people, generally cross studio, especially if you're talking about something like a Ubisoft, where it's like Ubisoft Shanghai and Ubisoft this and Ubisoft that, and it's and everybody has a very specific role in those gigantic teams. But this whole article is about how the people who stayed after they were informed that they were doing mobile games, because a lot of people apparently left to go work on AAA development elsewhere, had to step out of their comfort zones, and it created this it created a very creative atmosphere, I guess is the best word for it, where they prototyped all this stuff, and they came up with Hitman Go, which of course is spun off into Tomb Raider and now Deus Ex. It's a cool article. You should definitely go read it. And it's just, I know, Ethan, where you're very much big on the artistry of game creation.
Yes.
And it's kind of it's a good story for that, because it's like, those games weren't built based on some kind of business model. I mean, obviously there was a business model attached to it, but
sure.
It wasn't what led the development from the looks of it, right? So.
And I think that's awesome, and it's great that they've been able to keep going. I think, unfortunately, that model is something that simply can't be replicated by really anybody else, because they start with these huge brands that everyone recognizes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also the Apple love that they've gotten. Lara Croft Go, and rightly so, got Apple's Game of the Year last year, and I still think
Sure.
that's probably the best game on the App Store. But again, if they didn't get those accolades, which is hard to get, and they didn't have those brands, these games would not be able to sustain a studio.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I wonder if they're going to keep being able to do it. I hope they are. I would imagine even now there's a good chance that they're modest loss leaders that help maintain the presence of Square Enix in the App Store, and also help, of course, sell the big games when they're coming out.
Oh,
Well, I think
absolutely.
you're right, because you look at Deus Ex Go right now on the paid chart, it's number 14.
No, and I'm not
in
saying
games.
that it would sustain an entire company. I just think that it's a very interesting way to treat, because you're talking about a gigantic publisher.
Sure.
That's not the way they work, right? Like that just isn't the way they work. So it's interesting to see them doing that, and I think you actually make a really good point. It lets Square Enix have a presence on the App Store that, like, generally when you think Square Enix, and obviously you immediately go to Final Fantasy, and you see the Final Fantasy releases if they're on the App Store, they've always been at a ridiculous price. Right, like it's like I'm paying $20 for this Final Fantasy game. It's crazy, right? Like those
Yeah.
aren't prices that you pay for mobile games ever. Not really anymore, but ever. So just to see that they can have like a $6 up here series that, yes, they do need to be attached to a license. I don't think some indie studio could come in and have that level of success without that license attached. But I just like the idea of how they've handled this. When honestly, it would have been just as easy to just cut that studio completely and hire an outside developer.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the fact
yeah.
that the studio was able to come up with the idea and prototype it is it's a very cool. Like I said, give it a read. I think you'll really like it.
I will check that out. Yeah, and again, having come from Sega, I think having worked the past 3 years in mobile, by far the best game that we released in that window was a game that we published that was done by just a handful of guys called Hiroki, and it was just absolutely beautiful. It was clearly a labor of love, and what was great to see is the app editors on the Apple side just this past week had it in games we're playing, right? So it got front page coverage yet again, which is fantastic. And here's a game that I can say with great confidence is better than anything Supercell has ever made. But it doesn't matter that it's better, and that's kind of the shame is that it didn't move the needle in terms of sales the way we hoped it would. We maybe priced it too high because I think we launched it at like $7.99, but even if it was like $3.99, which ultimately there was price experimentation, it's such a hostile environment to the pay up front games. I'm just glad people continue to make them. And CJ, you sent me a note earlier this week that was pointing out that despite it being incredibly hostile, there are still people trying.
Absolutely. There's still some great games like Deus Ex Go. Reigns just came out from Devolver. I don't know if you've checked it out. Reigns, Reigns. It's sort of like a text adventure with Tinder controls. So basically, you swipe right, swipe left.
Oh yeah, right.
It's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely check that out. I think that one's like $3. But the important thing to remember is, there are so many people out there who are like, I don't want to pay $3 or $4 or $5, whatever, for a mobile game. It's like, dude, listen to yourself. Like $5, like it's barely even lunch.
Well,
like
I think a lot of us predicted this a long time ago when that first started happening. Everyone started using the term to the bottom, and here we are.
And there was, and there are still a lot of really, really great experiences to be had on mobile that are premium. And you pointed out Teeny Titans a couple weeks ago, Deus Ex Go, Reigns. There's quite a lot there, and only if people are willing to pony up a couple of dollars.
It must be really hard for the Apple editorial guys too, because they are doing everything they can to feature these games. Clearly, they love those games, and the pressure must be overwhelming to shift away from that.
They clearly do everything they can to feature those games, and then you look at the charts. And they don't. It used to be that if Apple featured you and you were a paid game, you were made in the shade. Like you were going to be at at least top 5.
So I'm curious
Deus Ex Go as number 14, or something like Legend of the Skyfish, which also came out last week. It's sort of a Zelda-style adventure game at number 27. Like that's very sad for me to see that it's not moving the needle for those games as much as it used to.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to share with you guys an experience I had that was really great and very new for me this week with games. And I'm going to preface by saying Larilyn McWilliams, who's a free-to-play designer, but she's really smart. She's been around for the past 20 years in games. She has always said that you want to make purchasing in games feel like you feel when you're picking up your iPhone. Right, like you're excited to spend that money, and you're getting something that you really feel like you're lucky to have gotten. I felt that exact thing this week when I bought my first limited run game. And I just love the way those guys are set up, because there's a game that's been on the PSN store for a while called Rainbow Moon. And in fact, it was even a PSN free game for a while, and that's where I had initially downloaded it. But they worked with that development team, who had the idea for a really ambitious RPG that they brought over to the Sony platforms, and they made an agreement to make a boxed version of it. And the Vita version, which I really wanted, they said there's only going to be 3,000 of these ever made. Ever printed. So they let you know through Twitter in advance when the sale is going to start, and that's like at 10 a.m. Pacific. And then if you miss that first batch, they do one more batch in the later part of the day. So I missed the first batch. It sold out literally within minutes. And then that second batch, which was a 3 p.m. time, I was ready, watching the store, refreshing, got my copy, got paid, out through PayPal, and I'm so excited to get it, right? And it's one of 3,000. It makes me feel like I have something that is really unique as a collector, and it's this incredible exchange of joy between myself and Limited Run, because they themselves are putting the games out for $24.99. Now they know, as we discussed in prior episodes, that almost immediately these games start to go for $100 on eBay, right? But they charge what they think is fair, right?
Sure.
So they basically do exactly the opposite at every single turn of what Mark Pincus would do.
Well,
And
this
that's
is what I think is interesting about that, and we can separate that from free-to-play stuff entirely, because what I think is interesting about what Limited Run does and stuff like I Am 8-Bit doing vinyl soundtracks and things like that. For digital games, like they are really bringing, a physical good, a physical commodity to a lot of games that are digital only. And it's usually that those are digital only because the developer is small and they can't do a physical release. And that's what I think is so interesting about I Am 8-Bit and Limited Run, and there are a couple other outfits that do something similar. Even the retro Rampage, even though you guys didn't like it. The Retrocity Rampage, doing like a physical version. I think he did a PSP version very recently, and it's like, why would you do that? It's because there are fans of that game who go crazy for that kind of thing, and there are fans of these digital games who go crazy to have a physical copy of the game, and to me, I think that's important. And for Limited Run to be doing some of the stuff like that, for I Am 8-Bit, who just announced a physical version of that Rez Infinite game that comes out this fall, like that stuff, I think is going to become increasingly important as we move along into this digital era. Even though I am all digital, I think it's super interesting to see this happening, and I love it. I want, even though I'm not going to buy the stuff, it's super interesting to me that it's happening, and as long as it means I get digital copies of soundtracks, then I'm fine with that.
Sorry, I tuned out 5 minutes ago.
The other company that does cool stuff like that is Fangamer, and they don't do the Limited Run stuff, but I have coming to me in October Shovel Knight for PS Vita, and what's great is they figure out their allocations early, so everyone gets a copy if they want it, again, it's nice to have that, and it'll be fun to be able to point out in your collection 30 years from now, hey, this is something almost no one has.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh, and also I'm still opening the damn things and playing them. I'm not the type of collector that keeps the cellophane on everything.
There you go. It's important. It's important to do that, I think. All right, Greg.
Yep.
What's up?
What do you got? What do you got for us?
I finally know what a Shenmue is.
Wait, it's actually a thing? I thought it was just the name of the game. What?
No, it's a thing.
Are you serious?
Do you want me to spoil it?
It's Ryu's pet name for his penis. It's kind of a funny
Yikes! Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Just tease it that you'll be talking about it on Back in My Play.
I finished Shenmue 2. I got past that point that Ethan spoiled a couple weeks ago.
Cool moment though, isn't it?
No, not at all, because I knew it was going to happen.
Okay, yeah.
You ruined it.
This will ruin it, but it's very Empire Strikes Back, isn't it?
I don't see where you're going with that. No. You know why?
It's unresolved. It's a deliberate unresolved cliffhanger.
Yeah, but so was the first one.
Yeah,
I feel like Shenmue 3 is going to be worth playing because they might have a game with an actual ending.
Yeah.
Be nice. But the thing that came afterward was, so that was the end of Disc 3. There's still a fourth disc, and boy, the fourth disc started off, it kind of felt like a victory lap at first, where it's just, do a couple little things here and there. And then you realize that it's literally like 4 hours of walking next to Shenhua, who is the girl that you saw in the original Shenmue 2 trailers. She doesn't appear till the last disc. And you literally walk through the mountains with her and talk for 4 effing hours.
If I remember, the localization is not fantastic on that also.
Well, this was all in This was all in Japanese. I
Oh,
was
okay.
playing
So
the I was
you're
playing
playing the
Dreamcast
Dreamcast
version.
one, the
Yeah,
European
I
one. Yeah.
can't even imagine sitting through that with the wooden acting
On
that they
Xbox.
had. Oh my God. I mean, at least it was active in that I had to read the subtitles. But it was I believe very little happened. There were a few quick time events, but even there was no real as much as I hate those, there was no real risk to them. I didn't miss them because they were so easy to do, and it was just kind of like you're running through the forest with Shenhua, so there's really nothing happening. But then yeah, it's just a lot of talking, a lot of talking. So it was kind of a bitch to come down on, to be honest. If it had been about an hour, that would have been great, but it was not. It was just too long. So, but anyway, Shenmue 2's done. Ready for Shenmue 3. Uh, Here's hoping that they take all the lessons the rest of the world learned in the past 15 years and deliver a more playable game. Because I really love the idea behind. I always did love the idea behind the Shenmue games, but in execution they kind of stumbled in general. So, but it's done. My Dreamcast is back in storage for a little while. New game this week, though, F1 2016, which you could maybe be able to see on this mirror back here. It actually, my controller just disconnected on it. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit because I'm really, really excited about what they've done, although I haven't spent a lot of time with the game yet. So I haven't really experienced how this affects gameplay as much as I should have. So F1 2015 came out last year, and it was very bare bones. It was 2 seasons you could play, the 2014 and 2015 season, which really all that amounts to is a couple of different drivers in different cars and one different track between the 2 seasons. This year what they've done is they brought back career mode, which is nice. So now you get to sign with any one of the teams, and I think it's 20 teams, and you have different expectations. You have to try to do all these different R&D, not really mini games, but during practice sessions they'll send you out and say, like, you follow the optimum line at the best speed, and that gives you some R&D points that you can spend on the car and make the car better. Or you do a qualifying run, or you do tire wear management, which I was really happy to see because last year, in last year's game, that was my biggest downfall. When everyone else made 2 pit stops, I made 3 because I was wearing my tires so badly that I just had no traction left after a few laps. So all that's really cool. But they've added a few more little sort of more hardcore things that I really dig. And the thing is that for anyone who's listening who watches F1 will know this, but F1 is really a science at this point. It runs on the assumption that the driver is going to perform to the ability of the car. So it's always fascinating to me because I grew up in sort of watching stock car racing, which is, everyone races as hard as they can, or they try to maybe maintain some tire wear levels. But if there's a caution flag thrown, the field bunches up, everyone goes in the pits, they change tires to come back out, and they go at it again. In F1, basically when the race starts, very rarely does it stop. So everything is actually measured down to the minute. So it's like if you're driving for Mercedes, on the assumption that you're going to run at the limit of that car, the engineers have figured out how long your tires are going to last, exactly how long the race is going to take. At certain levels of tire wear, this is the vector of this is how your lap times will increase, also how they'll decrease based on the amount of fuel in the car, like little things like that. And that's never really been present in the Codemasters F1 games because the thing is that there's a few real key moments in the races where you can really affect how you perform. And one is the start. Not only going into the first turn with all the other cars and not wrecking, because that's huge, but actually the way you start and your reaction time on the start lights. Now, in previous games, all you did was hold the gas and wait for the red lights to go out, and you went, and everybody went at the exact same speed. This year, they've introduced manual starts, which is you actually engage the clutch, and your timing on that actually dictates your start. Other little things too, like when you enter the pits now, it used to be that when you entered pit lane, you could go top speed until you hit the pit limiter line, at which point the game would take over, drop you to minimum or maximum pit lane speed, and you go out again. Now you actually have to break down to that speed as late as possible so you can gain some tenths in the pit. So there's lots of little things like that happening throughout the game that I'm super happy about. But even when you're using those more sort of hardcore features, you can still set the game up in such a way that it's still very user friendly. Little things like the optimum line and braking zones in the corners have been adjusted a little bit, so now you can actually brake when it tells you to brake as opposed to braking a lot earlier than you used to. You can do manual transmission, but it'll have the suggested gear. Like, there's just a lot of really cool little things that I'm really digging so far, even in the hour that I've played it. So, super happy with this. They've made real strides. That they haven't just gone back to where they were at the end of the PS3 and 360 life cycle, which really is what I thought they were going to do. They've actually come up with an entirely new career mode. They come up with a bunch of cool little features that I really, really like. So I just need to find sort of that difficulty level sweet spot and try to take the Manor Racing team to the championship. And it's got online championship mode, which is nice as well. So anyway, I'm going to talk about it more next week when I've actually played it. I'm going to be doing sort of a review discussion thing that we do with Rich Grisham's Hit the Pass over the next week or so. And cool. So you can check that out for some more detail. But so far, super happy with what I've seen. I think Codemasters has done a bang-up job with this, and I'm sure there'll be blemishes, but so far I'm liking what I'm playing.
Well, and they've continued to build on their reputation quietly as the best racing designers in the business.
Yeah, my understanding is that they actually grabbed a lot of people when there were a few major racing studios that closed over the last 5 years, and my understanding is they grabbed a lot of people from those places. So, yep. But it's showing. I mean, they're showing a love for the nuance of that racing style, because it is so much different than something like a NASCAR, which, it's just nice to see that you always affected the outcome because of the way you would drive, but now it feels like when you watch an F1 weekend, you're affecting the outcome in the same way that the drivers are, like I said, with your reaction time and with sort of pushing the limit as hard as you can without going over the line. And I'm really happy with it so far.
Well, and I also just think it's so cool that console can support those kinds of niches within niches, and they can be successful and sustainable.
Yeah, and I mean, then there's the new NASCAR game coming from DMR in 20 days, so I'm really excited about that too, which Rob Fleischer is doing PR for.
Nice. And Forza Horizon 3.
Forza Horizon 3. It's going to be a good autumn for racing. Yeah. Really excited. I'm
looking forward to Forza Horizon because those games are amazing.
And we're playing that together, right?
Hell yeah. Of course.
You got it.
Yeah, and then that Recore game comes out pretty soon too.
Yes.
On Xbox. So.
It's going to be some good times.
God,
and next week Deus Ex.
Yeah, are you a fan of that series? I haven't played it at all, so I don't know. But a lot of people are talking this one up.
Yeah, I like the last one a lot. I actually ended up playing the last one on the Wii U, and this one I'm definitely excited about.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I know nothing.
Eventually.
I know nothing about that series. Nothing.
Yeah, basically the big complaint with the last Deus Ex was that you had two different teams working on the stealth action sequences and the boss sequences. So, if you were optimizing for pure stealth, the boss sequences became a massive pain in the ass because there was no way to stealthfully engage with them. It was all just brute force, which you weren't prepared for because you were not spending your points that way. But this one, they've promised that they have smoothed all of that out, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's all I got.
Do some tweets. Think about that.
Sure, I love it.
All right, let's do this one from hacker alias the JBone29, who says, "Why is Hello Games getting a pass for being a small team, but sending out a game with a perceived lack of depth for $60?"
Because they didn't set the price.
Yeah, a lot of that's out of the control of that dev team. That's true. The messaging.
They didn't set the price. They didn't do the marketing. Yes, maybe you could make an argument that head of Hello Games wasn't as upfront as he should have been about what the game was. There is an argument to be made there, but the end of the day, the reason I'm giving them a pass is because they released something on a massive scale as a very small team. They're not responsible for the price. They're not responsible for the marketing.
So Sony directly published it, right, on the PlayStation 4?
That's right.
Okay, and then who published it on Steam?
No idea. Maybe they
That's a
did.
good
Maybe that was
question.
part of the deal.
I
Maybe that was part of the deal.
haven't looked.
Yeah, well, in any event, I mean, many of the things that people are frustrated or disappointed by is a result of marketing and understanding what was connecting with people and pushing that angle as hard as possible. That, the enthusiasm of the development team can be felt, but I don't think they've ever said anything that's untrue.
So Steam is self-published, by the way.
They self-published.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's it feels like overspeak, but it seems to be one of those things where what really happened is that the words, the language, the message they were communicating put in our minds something that they never actually promised to begin with.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Here's the difference between an indie game and a AAA game. Like, you have 15 people working on No Man's Sky, and you have a feature list and a GDD at the beginning, and you have hopes.
Which is a game design doc for anyone who doesn't know what that stands for.
All right, fine.
Well, I had that happen at work the other day when somebody from another branch of the company kept throwing around the term GDD, and they're like, "What is a GDD?"
Right, right. But you have like basically like a map of what you're going to do and the features you're going to build, and in an indie game development, sometimes you don't make it all the way through every bit of those because some features need more attention than others, and you don't have time to complete certain features.
And as user testing happens, you realize that something's not really having the effect it should, or that you could tweak it to make it better, and that, of course, takes time and budget away from another feature that's not done yet.
That's right. Or a feature's not fun when you get it to testers and people aren't enjoying it, so you decide to just cut it until you can pay more attention to it later. Whereas, in a AAA experience, when you've got 1,000+ people on a team, you basically you don't quite have that problem of building out small features.
And I'll just say that as for, like, of course, I guess the question when you talk about who published it on Steam, of course the question is, we're saying they don't set the price, but then on Steam it does cost $60, or maybe it's $50 in the States. I have no idea.
Yeah, but they need to have parity.
They would have to have parity there. Sony would have required that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing, and I don't know the details of any deal, but I'm guessing some of Sony's money was spent on development. So.
Yeah, and the other thing also to bear in mind when it comes to the price, I know that it's a lot. I would have preferred it to be something closer to $40, but in truth, I've purchased so many games at $60 that are so much worse than No Man's Sky that I can't feel badly about spending $60 on this one. It's a decent game, and again, it offers something very new. But how many times have you played something worse for that same price point?
Oh, sure. All the time. All right, Hacker Alias. Let's do this one. Hacker Alias. Benjamin Rivers. Let's do this one. He says, "How do you hope to be playing retro games when you're 80? Original hardware, VR simulation, or brain implant?"
Huh.
Very interesting question.
Yeah. It's. I think my preference is always going to be to play on the original hardware where possible, because half the fun of playing these games is playing them as they were originally designed. That becomes much harder when you're talking about not having CRTs around anymore.
Right.
But I know that sometimes the modifications that happen with emulation is such that the game really does look and feel fundamentally differently than it did when we were kids, and it's not just remembering it differently. It's like you look at them side by side and it's different. But when it's totally inaccessible in its original form, I'm very happy when emulated versions are there too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, original hardware is pretty important. Really, for me, though, the original controller is what I want.
Yeah.
Because those games are designed to use a very specific controller most of the time, and that for me is like the deal breaker, which is why I loved the idea of the Retron 5 at first. a little bit disappointed with the hardware after a while because I don't think I know anyone who has one who hasn't complained that theirs has died or is not working quite as well as it should.
Yeah.
That's a little more important for me. And I mean, Ethan makes a good point, because emulation is not perfect. Although it comes pretty damn close. One of the things, though, that I think that we're really going to lose when you're mentioning CRT, of course, we're losing light gun games. We've lost light gun games. Excuse me, for the most part. I mean, they've made them since then for like the Wii remote, but they don't feel quite the same. And I'm talking more like going back and playing Duck Hunt or Virtual Cop or something like that.
Right.
But
those are coming back for VR, by the way. I don't know if
that would be great.
You've played Space Pirate Trainer. The people who have played that know what I'm talking about. That is awesome. Light gun style gameplay that you'll really enjoy.
The loss of CRT, though, for me, is there's another issue, which is I'm a huge fan of sort of the chunky, pixelated look that you get from emulating, but that's not the way those games were meant to be seen.
Right.
Art was built around a interlaced, scanned picture, and
how true is that though? Really, I mean,
very true.
Back in the day, I played Quackshot on the Genesis on my TV, and at a certain
point, it didn't look like it does now.
It doesn't. Yeah, it didn't look like it does now. But here's the thing about that: like, I got an RGB cable back in the day, hooked it up to my Apple IIgs monitor, and was able to see, there are skulls in the fire in some of the levels. It's like I couldn't see that level of detail. So I mean, they were making that level of detail, but obviously you weren't seeing that level of detail.
Yeah, there are elements of that for sure. But then you look back at something like, and I know you'll probably laugh at this, Pac-Man on the 2600.
Right. Well, and here's the way I would look at it is
there was an artistry to that.
Well, think about the fact that films to this day generally tend to be shown at 24 frames a second. We've seen what happens when they go 60 frames a second, and technically it's a higher quality picture, but that was The Hobbit. And if you saw Hobbit in theaters in 60 frames,
terrible.
It looked like a weird BBC television show or something.
It looked like a home movie.
Yeah. And so there's something kind of magical about that 24 frames a second, and it kind of creates almost like a dreamlike look. And I think that it's very similar for games where, if something was made explicitly to be displayed on a CRT, there's something weird to remove it from that context.
I think CJ. I think, CJ, that you could argue once you're hitting the 16-bit era, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're getting more on the side of it was supposed to be, what the hell's the word I'm looking for? Not interlaced, but when something's not interlaced, what's it called? Help me out here.
Aliased?
Not aliased. Shit. Anyway, progressive scan. Things were more meant to be progressive scan, and but I think when you go further back, like NES, Master System, and 2600, those and earlier, those games were built to be seen on a interlaced screen.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And I bring up Pac-Man. Like, I know that Pac-Man on the 2600 is a joke, but it's always sort of been funny to me, and I always thought it was brilliant the way that they handled it, because anyone who hasn't seen this, if you play Pac-Man for the 2600 on an emulator, you only ever see one ghost at a time, because they're using the same sprite and they're flashing it all over the place for all four ghosts. Because back when that game was released, a television there would be a fade on every sprite, so it would flicker, but you'd still be able to see it, because the sprite would actually fade out, and by the time before it was fully faded out, the sprite would come back to that position again and would redraw. But when you get a really high refresh rate on an emulator, you don't get that. You just get one ghost dancing all over the screen. So it's just an example of the type of tricks they use, because they were programming to the specifications of the hardware that they were displaying it on.
Yeah.
Right. So it was meant to be seen that way. Yeah, it was terrible, but I played the hell of it because I loved it.
My answer to Benjamin Rivers' question is VR simulation all the way. I want to have the ability to set up
in VR.
This exactly, game room or like parents' basement.
Yes,
or family room, like big set up a couch,
floor model TV.
Yeah, floor model television.
What you guys are
with the reverse projection or whatever, like rear projection.
Yep.
I had mentioned on the show before that I had played the Oculus Arcade that actually ended up having
Oh,
a
I
lot of
loved
Genesis
that.
console games there.
Yeah.
And that's super cool, but like you're absolutely right. It would have been so much better with the Genesis games, with with the console games, if instead of being in an arcade space, you were seated in front of a CRT and like everything around you was set up to look like it was from the early 90s.
That's kind
Shag
of.
carpet wood paneling.
So we
Yeah.
already know, don't we, that that PSVR has like a big screen mode,
Mhm.
right, where
Yeah.
you can play regular games in the headset. It would be cool if you could like set up what environment you're playing in, like
Yep.
so it's not just it's a big screen in front of you, but you're in a stadium seating theater, or you're you have like a swanky apartment type thing where you can like look out the window and see something happening out there.
Well, and for that matter, I would love it if the virtual store in a product like that made you feel like you were walking into Electronics Boutique.
Oh,
you
that'd
know?
be interesting.
Hell, even get that brand for that purpose, right? It's something that would resonate, or a Funkoland, that type of thing. Walk into those places, have a clerk back behind the counter, and have it just feel as much like that purchasing experience as
but
possible.
not have it like PlayStation Home where you had to line up to play the Uncharted arcade game, or I think The Division had something similar when it launched. Is like you had to accept your mission. There was just a long single file line of people waiting.
Yeah, Home. The only thing I remember from Home was just sitting in a theater, watching Crackle, and having to type to someone without a keyboard, "Would you please stop fucking my face?"
Gotta
That's
drop
all
the
I
F
remember
bombs.
from
Every
Home.
week,
Okay.
you gotta drop the F bombs. What is wrong with you?
This is a family show, Ethan. Family show. But yeah, I think VR simulation of retro stuff could be really fun, because you could then like really you could do everything about the experience. You could do the CRT. You could do all that stuff. I want a VR
Yep.
Showbiz Pizza from 1985.
Oh, that would be
Let's do that.
great. Yeah.
All right.
And I would run to the Dragon's Lair machine in that, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. By the way, we're watching Land Before Time, which now the original Land Before Time is available on Netflix. Before, it used to be you could only watch Land Before Time 14 on Netflix.
My God, I can't believe how many of those movies they've made.
They've made...
First one's really good, though. It's Spielberg and Lucas and Don
The
Bluth.
first one is quite good.
I only discovered this weekend that there have been at least 2 Arthur sequels. You remember
Yeah.
that Arthur? I had no idea. Did those come out in theaters?
Arthur, you mean like what you mean some kind of kids movie, or you mean
Yeah, the pre-rendered. I think it's called Arthur. Now I gotta check and see. Maybe it's not Arthur.
Oh, actually,
maybe it's not.
CJ,
Yeah.
remember when they were releasing all of the Pokemon movies that were theatrical in Japan in theaters in the West?
Yeah.
I wonder with Pokemon Go if they will start doing that again.
No.
Okay.
It's not Arthur. I was wrong. I gotta find out what the hell I'm talking about.
You talking about Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel?
No, not Alvin and the
Squeakquel?
Chipmunks.
Squeakquel. I'll just keep saying Squeakquel.
I hate you.
All right, Hacker Alias P.O. Rowe says, does charging $60 for a game mean it should be relatively bug-free at launch?
Charging anything for
No.
a game means it should be relatively bug-free at launch.
I mean, the reality of the situation is that that's probably not going to happen for most games, right?
I don't agree with that at all.
You don't?
No. Most games are relatively bug-free does not mean completely bug-free.
Right.
That's true.
Relatively bug-free.
You're right.
Well, and
Well,
the
yeah,
answer to that question is if it passes first-party certification, then it's relatively
That's true.
bug-free.
I think there's a disconnect here that people don't understand, where getting patches does not necessarily mean that you
They're
can't
fixing bugs.
or that you're going to run into a game-breaking bug.
Right.
You may, but that's why you have patches.
I mean, I'll agree that nowadays games are not as bug free as they were when they were released on cartridges or before we had internet
True.
connections with games. Because although games did still ship with bugs,
I think
they're more noticeable now. Plus, the games are much more complex now than they ever were before. So
that's true, and I would also say there are a lot more games coming out week after week on any one console than used to be the case back in the day. Like you look at the PlayStation Store every week, and when there's like 8 games coming out on one day, like that didn't really happen all that much
right
back then.
By the way, I was right. It's Arthur and the Invisibles. There have been 2 sequels to Arthur and the Invisibles.
Oh, thank goodness.
I've never heard of that. Never.
I just realized it the other day. I saw an ad for it. My kids were all excited, and I'm like, "Are those? Did that? What?" Okay.
All right then.
Saying. Arthur
Okay.
et les Minimoys.
Okay.
Moving on. I'm waiting for you to move on. You're sitting.
Are
on
we
this.
still talking about $60 bug free? Are we done with that?
I think we covered it.
We covered it.
We covered it. All right. Let's do this one from Hacker Alias Andrews CCLL, who says, "Why don't Nintendo release more than one Mario Kart game per console?"
Huh. I would say there's no reason to assume that will always be the case. We got 2 Mario Galaxies on the Wii.
That's Mario Galaxy. He asked about Mario Kart.
I know, but I'm just saying that. Yeah, I mean,
You know why?
the games also they don't advance that much outside of aesthetics from game to game, which is fine. But go ahead, Greg.
I would argue that too, but no. You know what it is? Those
What?
games have extremely long legs. Those games
do.
sell. I mean, you remember what was it? Mario Kart, whatever. Wii. Wasn't that like a top seller for that system for the entire life of the system?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why? And same with I think Mario Kart 7 was a top seller for 3DS for a long time.
Yeah.
So why would you cut that off at the knees?
So, and here's the other thing that I would ask is, because they are so similar, doesn't the release of a new one kind of make the last one irrelevant? Unless, of course, it's like on a different platform or something. But like, would there be any reason to play Mario Kart Wii right now if you have Mario Kart 8?
No, and I don't think similarity would be the issue. It would so much as I think that you'd be saying that the new game is a failure if there was any reason to play the old game after the new one came out, then the new one wasn't good enough.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right? So, but I mean, you want to, yeah, I think that's the reason that they avoid that in general because, and I feel like if on the NX there's a Mario Kart early on and it doesn't really hit, which I sincerely doubt that'll happen, then you will see a second Mario Kart on the NX as long as the system is around long enough. But those games have extremely long legs.
Here's the thing. With I mean, you don't see more than one Smash Brothers game on a hardware platform either.
Because
I think
those
part of
games
it-
have extremely long legs.
They have extremely long legs, yes, and I think in the case of Mario Kart, a lot of those tracks are recycled from previous games. So you kind of need new hardware to bump up the visual fidelity and offer something new in those. Like if you did 2 versions of, or if you did Mario Kart 9 on the Wii U, it would probably look a whole lot like Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. And they really do. Mario Kart 8 anyway uses a lot of older tracks, but they redesign them in some really unique ways to use the anti-gravity gameplay of that installment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think yes, we will see a Mario Kart game on the NX, of course.
Oh, of course.
But if you did another one on the Wii U, it probably wouldn't look all that much different than it did on the Wii U. Like, why would you?
Unless they went for a completely different art style for some reason.
Yeah, which doesn't seem worth it.
Well, I think the other key thing to remember with both Mario Kart and Smash Brothers is that they have incredibly high-value DLC that's a part of that. So I picked up every single DLC package for Mario Kart 8 and got a terrific deal for all of it. And Smash Brothers, if you include the amiibos, I spent about $700 on that game overall.
My gosh.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it resonated to me. I'm happy with it, and if you can do that, you don't really need the sequel. At least for one platform.
Yeah, that's just it. You're hurting your market at that point, so that's the reason you don't do it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I think that's where we should end it for tonight.
Okay.
You agree? You want to do another one?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Happy. I got salads to make. Before we do that, though, this is the last chance I'll get to do this on the show. So I have set up my schedule for Extra Life between now and mid-November. Still want to raise over $5,000 more than I've already got raised, which is just under $400. So this coming weekend, the 27th, I will be doing 10 hours of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's any Sonic game that I own, basically, on any platform that I have.
Sonic 2006.
Sure. You want to go donate $25, Ethan? You can tell me what hour you want me to play that in. I'll play it for a whole hour.
You'll get past the load screen.
So that's the if it crashes, I'll just have to keep loading it for a whole hour. But I'm gonna be playing from what's the time? I forget exactly when I'm starting. I'm starting at 8 Eastern for 10 hours. Please come, and if you want to go to the page right now, extra-life.org/participant/Seward. For $25, you can pick one of the games that I play in one of those hours. And if not, and if you want to donate less, please do that. Please come and just watch, and please donate. We're in the last 3 months of this whole campaign, and I really want to start building some momentum here. See if I can beat my number last year, which was around $5,300. It's all for a great cause, so please, please, please come give what you can.
Cool deal. Oh, and PAX West is coming up here in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Are you going?
I'm going to be there, yep.
Nice.
Adult Swim has an Adult Swim arcade on the 6th floor of the convention center. We're in room 605 and 610. So people will want to come and check that out for sure. And I'm probably going to be playing some Federation Force with some people. Probably finding a group to play live because I don't know when I'm going to get to do that. So that'll be fun. But yeah, see everybody in Seattle. If you're a listener and you're there, come on, stop on by the Adult Swim Games booth and say hi, because that would be awesome.
Because CJ will name every single person that he meets on the show.
No, I'm not going to do that.
You're right.
But I would like to say hello. So anyway, I think that's where we ended.
All right.
Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct that to @P1Podcast on the Twitter, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward.
Pitfall.
The Mayan Adventure. Yeah. You'll find Generation 16 episodes.
Working on the last game of this episode.
Nice. Very nice. And you will find a message board where you can discuss this very episode with us and our other listeners.
If you would like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by going to player1podcast.com or the iTunes Music Store. While you're at the iTunes Music Store, you can spend $1.99.
Cheap.
On the Player One Podcast iPhone app, which lets you download and stream all 511 plus extras episodes of the Player One Podcast right to your listening device, as well as, check out the show notes and send us emails, I think, and other stuff like that. And if you want to go over to the Amazon Android App Store, you can find the exact same app for that same $1.99.
Also cheap.
You can check us out on Twitter at P1 Podcast. You can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on YouTube every week at 9 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday, at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we actually record the show live on video.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Thank you. 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. my time.
That's
9
true.
p.m. Atlantic, 8 p.m. Eastern.
That's right.
Where you get to see all the stuff that CJ cuts out of the show. So all the heavy breathing, all the F-bombs Ethan drops, and all the weird sex stories that CJ tells.
I don't cut out the F-bombs.
That's true. You should, but you
Those
don't.
in.
That's Ethan's special sauce, as it were.
Uh-huh.
And if you like what you've heard, and we know that you must, the show is free, but if you feel like you want to support us, that would be great. You can find us over at patreon.com/P1podcast. Please give what you can. Keep the lights on, keep the website up, keep the server running, keep making the show sound better and better, like with these pretty microphones we've got here, as well as help us buy some games that we all can play at the same time and discuss as a group. I think that's it.
Yes.
Ethan?
Yes,
Why don't you
thank
tell
you
the-
so much.
Why don't you tell the good people where they can find you on the internets?
They can find me on Twitter at Ethan_Einhorn, and my blog is gamingunicorn.com.
So if you want to read about Vita games and the evils of mobile free-to-play situation, that's your one-stop shop. CJ,
Yeah.
thank you for hosting.
Well, thank you very much.
And you can, of course, find
Correct.
CJ at SuperPack on Twitter.
Indeed.
Not political. And, of course, you can find me at Seward on Twitter. And please check out Generation 16, generation-16.com for all your Sega Genesis needs. And like I said before, extralifelinelife.org/participant/Seward. Come help me raise money for six, not just 6 kids, sick kids
Whoa.
at the IWK Health Center here in Halifax. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.